All right, so hello and welcome to April. And funny enough, April is not fooling around. We have a lot of transits to be looking at this month. So first, I want to welcome you to this video. My name is Kristalyn Avitovich. I'm an author and an astrologer, co-host of the Alchemist Inkwell podcast, and co-founder of the Forgotten Storytellers book writing, high vibe book writing program. So if you don't know who I am, I just love astrology. Astrology is my love language. And I really like to offer you guys an overview every month to go along with the episodes that we do every week in the Alchemist Inkwell. This is a deeper dive into understanding the details that go into the astrology and understanding a little bit of how astrology works. I explain more of the astrology language in these videos. So if you're coming here from the Alchemist Inkwell, hi, so great to see you. I hope that you enjoyed this and I hope it's very useful. April is a very dynamic month. I say dynamic because almost every day has a transit, and some of them are very pivotal. Some of them have a really big energy to them, and some of them are nice and we'll be able to take some opportunities to really align ourselves with them. In every transit, I want to make this known, in every transit, there is the full unlimited potential of the energy of that transit. So even on transits where it talks about a square aspect, which is normally seen as challenging, there is an opportunity in that. And I want to let you know that even though I will acknowledge what we might notice in the world around us with different aspects, whether they're positive or challenging or easy or just an opportunity that we can take advantage of, I will be focusing on, we may notice this, and here is how to align or take advantage of the energy and channel it into something constructive and productive for you, so you can get the best out of that transit that you possibly can. So that's the explanation of transits. There is one thing this month that I will say just step back and allow, and that is actually the eclipse that is happening at the end of the month, and we will discuss that. For each lunation, that's a full moon or a new moon, or in this case, an eclipse, I will show the chart, and I will also show the chart on screen when the sun moves signs, as the sun will move from Aries into Taurus this month. So I'll show you those on screen, and everything in between, I'll just keep between you and me, because you'll be able to see them kind of unfolding on the chart as we look at the chart together on screen anyway. So like I said, I hope this is illustrative. I hope it's comprehensive, and I hope it's helpful. And one of the things I want to let you know, in the comments or the description of this video, I will link the timestamp for the full moons, new moons, eclipses, and season changes. So you can jump to those and then more easily navigate your way to the transit you are looking for. Every transit will be listed along with its date. So you'll be able to jump to the closest lunation and then fast forward or rewind or whatever you want to do to find the transit that you'd like some more information about. Because I understand this video may end up being long because it's a crazy amazing month to be looking at astrology. So hopefully that also helps. We're going to dive in on April 1st, which just happens to also be the first new moon of the month. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then we will be able to take a look at this together. So we have the April new moon in Aries. Some things to really notice about this is the new moon is at 11 degrees Aries. The sun is exalted in Aries. So we are looking at the sun being, even though overshadowed or overshadowing the moon, and typically not the most visible part of that lunation, where the moon actually comes in front of the sun from the Earth's perspective. That's what a new moon does. So if you think about this center circle being where we're standing, we see the moon first and it kind of blocks out the sun. But this is an initiation of a new cycle for the moon. It's a new month for the moon. So we're still seeing that the sun is exalted, that energy is still fiery with this new moon. It's very initiatory. It's very much the beginning of things. And it is the first new moon of this new cycle that the sun entered, this new zodiacal year that began with the vernal equinox in the Northern Hemisphere when the sun moved into Aries. So what we're looking at is the ruler of this being Mars, and Mars is getting very close to Saturn. And you can also see that Saturn is at what we call the bend of the nodes. So this is that square aspect I was talking about before. And these are the nodes, the north node more of the increase, the direction we're headed, and the south node, more decrease in what we are leaving behind. And these help us understand, we'll talk more about them with the eclipses, because they help us see kind of roughly where the eclipses are going to take place. They are based on the actual moon. So they're not physically out there. You can't see them with your eyes, but we use them as little indicators for where the eclipses are going to be. So this is going to be a topic that we cover at the end of April in this video, because there will be an eclipse on the 30th. So hold tight and we will get to that in more detail as well. Right now, I want to focus on this little gathering right here, and this gathering right here, and this right here. You can see all of the planets are actually on the same side, in the same hemisphere, comparatively to the nodes, and they're very focused in this area. So we are also experiencing a lot of energy focused in these areas. We have this sort of triple conjunction happening that we've been rolling around with since probably the end of February, if I recall correctly, when Venus finally went direct and she and Mars came into Aquarius with Saturn. Venus has now gotten on the other side of Saturn, which is helpful, and is about to, during this month, move into her sign of exaltation, which we will talk about, but not quite yet. And Mars is now coming up to poke the bear, so to speak, with Saturn. Saturn is very structured and tends to be the thing that holds the law. It's lawful, and we'll say lawful neutral. Planets, especially further out as Saturn is, tend to be on the more neutral side. It's going to be what it needs to be and what sort of unfolds, and we can again use that energy to the best of our capacity. But Saturn is the holder of the boundaries. So Mars, being someone who's a little bit more explosive, a little bit more ambitious, is kind of poking, and then that sort of driving in the car and he's touching me and are we there yet, and all those kinds of energies can kind of come along with Mars in this aspect. And it will be exact a couple days after the new moon, but we can kind of feel it, especially with this lunation really bringing this energy to make it personal for us. New moons are very much about internal and healing and all of those things. As the world is kind of in a little extra darkness, we are taking extra rest too before we emerge the way the moon will after the new moon. So with this, I'm taking particular notice of these guys here getting closer and closer, and the fact that Saturn is at the bend of the nodes, saying like this is a turning point. We're kind of at a crossroads, so maybe a little bit of Hecate energy going along with this. And it feels very much pass fail. What am I taking with me into this new manifestation that the moon is showing me? And what am I leaving behind, especially as we are approaching that eclipse season, which is very much about surrendering and realigning with our divine path. And that's how I really like to see eclipses. They are pivot points, and they are fixed points that make sure that we are where we need to be. And so we're getting ready for that. This is the last new moon before eclipse season. We are preparing our souls, in a sense, to be able to bring in this energy. So that's from my perspective. Other astrologers may say a little bit differently, but that's how I like to interpret the eclipses. It's just in case you were a little wibbly wobbly, we're going to bring it back into alignment. And Saturn is really making sure we feel that at this point. So we do have Saturn at the bend of the nodes coming into, with Mars coming into the conjunction with Saturn. So there's a lot of ambitious energy, but it would be helpful to structure it. And so this is how, you can see Mars and Saturn conjoining as kind of explosive pressure, or you can say, I have a lot of energy. It's a great opportunity to channel it into something decisive. And that's the opportunity that we do have here, especially with this being a new moon in Aries, really emphasizing that Mars agreement. So we also get to look at, let's see, making sure I didn't miss anything. Another interesting thing about this new moon is that it is conjunct Chiron. And typically in transit, I'm still weighing in how I want to incorporate Chiron into translations of astrology. In a person's chart, in a personal reading, I definitely look at Chiron for where Chiron was when that person was born. But in transit, it's sort of, I've noticed it has an effect, but with the moon being right there, it becomes very personal and a little bit more activated. So we may be doing a lot of emotional growth, emotional healing being initiated with this. So that is something to allow yourself to feel a little vulnerable, to do things that make you feel safe and in a safe place to be able to express yourself and allow, again, that healing new moon kind of focus to come in. There's a lot of healing focus happening still with Jupiter and Neptune being in Pisces as well. That's very meditative. It's very therapeutic. So it's something to really take into account that this new moon, a great option is to just release your stress in the most healing way that you can imagine for yourself. I recommend physical stress reliefs. We are in Aries, so that would be things like physical exercise, boxing, taking a walk, getting a massage, something that's more physically interactive, where your body can release that energy more tangibly so that stress goes away. So that's one option. The affirmation I have for this new moon is I release all stress to create space for healing renewal. I release all stress to create space for healing renewal. It's a very nice thing to remind yourself as we're navigating this energy. So we have Saturn at the bend of the nodes, giving us an indication that we're at a turning point in just the way the world is going. And I think we can all agree, yeah, that's true. This isn't exactly new news. It's just an affirmation that, yes, we're at this turning point. There is motion happening. There is movement happening. Even if on the daily, it doesn't necessarily feel like it, this day may help us to understand that, or at least unconsciously to feel that and move along with it. And with Mars right there, we'll talk about this in a couple days to, as far as the video goes, it will be exact in a couple days and I will bring that up. I believe it's just 2 days after this new moon. So the new moon in Aries is very much an initiator of healing, an initiator of allowing yourself to be sort of raw and vulnerable in that safe space. One thing I like about this is if you're looking at it for the location that I've done, it's actually in the 4th house. So it is really very much about safe spaces and doing things that work for you in your security and your nurturing process. So you can adjust this to your time zone, to your location, and see what house it falls in for that area. But I just typically set it to New York because that's a nice general place. So the houses are not the most important thing when it comes to lunations. I just thought it was a nice little added flavor for the general feel of this lunation to go along with it. So then I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen because I'm going to be moving the chart a lot. The next day, we actually will be experiencing, here we go. The next day, we will see on the 2nd, the sun, again, exalted in Aries, will conjoin with Mercury. This happens pretty frequently. It's part of Mercury's process, and Mercury is the closest to the sun. So it has those aspects more often than most planets, than I think any of the other planets. So what this gives us is a moment of clarity, of really sharp-mindedness. It can also come out as quick words. Being in Aries, we may not have a filter. So we may think it and say it in almost the same instant. And that's okay. Usually, if you are someone who is navigating the world without the intention to harm or, hurt anybody's feelings, what you say is going to be something that you do mean on some level. And it opens up an opportunity for communication, whether it's a genuine and authentic compliment that you just couldn't hold in, or it's a feeling that needed to come out and be processed and be acknowledged. Either way, the opportunity is here. So this is a great time if you're especially taking advantage of the fact that we have this conjunction with Chiron going on. Journal about your feelings or talk to someone who is there to listen to you about your feelings so that you can remove that filter in a safe space and allow yourself to really process what it is that you're feeling, what you're going through. And then you can witness those feelings, process them through, and move on into whatever is coming next for you. And the next day, actually, the 3rd, is one of the few days in the month where there are no transits. So it's probably going to be a nice restful day in between these transits as we are building up to that final point of Mars conjunct Saturn on the 4th of April. Now, we may have felt this at its most energy and most personal during the new moon, but things to be aware of that still are kind of in action at this point, knowing that the moon at this point, wow, I'm going to look at my chart here. So the moon, it will be forming a square with Saturn and Mars at this point. So again, bringing that into our personal lives, bringing it into something that we can actually feel on a personal level. And so with the moon being there, it kind of forms a bit of a T-square, which is half of a full square. So if you just think of it like a wedge, that's what we're going to be seeing between the moon, Saturn and Mars, who will be conjunct, and the actual south node as well, because Saturn is still squaring the nodes. The moon is very close to being conjunct the north node at this point. So again, just taking that energy and making it personal, making it more tangible, and in a way that we can feel it. So I even have my notes here saying, we'll probably feel this, but it feels like tough love. And it can be extremely tough love, but it's not for the purpose of tearing you down. It's for the purpose of getting you on track. It's for the purpose of helping get your mind in a space where you can see more clearly. Sometimes we have a tendency to zero in on things and hyper focus and get fixated on it. And that is another energy that might come along with the aggressive and ambitious energy of Mars zeroing in with that structure and restriction that Saturn provides. And the moon coming in, squaring it, is saying, hey, take a minute. Notice something else that's going on here. Let's throw in some conflict so that we want to change something. And that is a way that you might notice a square actually helping you in life, saying, hey, there's a challenge here. So now you're aware, now you're pausing and assessing, and now you can do something to get yourself back on track in a way that feels better for you. This is an opportunity for change. Now I've let you know that we can change. Let's make the change. So I tend to look at squares as, yeah, we notice it because something goes differently than maybe we intended, but it is an opportunity to witness your feelings, let yourself feel them, and then move forward in a new direction. And that newness can be exciting, right? Sometimes it's nerve-wracking, I get that. But in this case, it feels like we can get rid of some things that have been holding us down, get rid of some things we've been too fixated on, and then move towards a greater good. So one of the notes I have here is some sort of personal release or sacrifice of something, saying, I no longer need this, even though I really like it. Kind of when you hold on to something because it's sort of nostalgic, but as Marie Kondo would say, it's no longer sparking joy. So you can let it go and then move on. And it opens up a lot more opportunities that aren't so limited because you've allowed that one thing to be released. So it's about looking at the total picture, which at this point may not be the clearest thing. You may not feel like you know exactly where you're going, but right now that's okay. We are still in a lot of Pisces energy, especially with Jupiter, the traditional ruler of Pisces, being very near conjunct Neptune, who is considered a modern co-ruler of Pisces. I like to say that they agree with those themes of Pisces. It's very Neptunian and Piscean. They kind of nod at each other. They agree. And Jupiter is there conjoining with this. So there is this fluid, not so sure what definition looks like. And we have the epitome of definition in Mars and Saturn, they're in conjunct, they're not seeing each other. So I don't know where I'm going, but I know where I am right now. And I can use this energy to make a change and to do the next best thing or the next right thing, as Frozen 2 would say. And I love that song so much because it just helps in a moment where you don't have the farsightedness or the foresight to be able to make a long-term decision. You can make the next decision. So that is the 4th of April. We're off to, like I said, a dynamic start. Coming on the 5th, we then have Venus moving into Pisces. This is nice because Venus is exalted in Pisces. So Venus has had quite a time lately, just traveling through Capricorn where Mars was exalted and Mars was present. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, as is Aquarius. So she leaves this retrograde period from November through January, finally gets into Aquarius, but is running side by side with Mars. in another Saturn ruled sign. And so then she was between Mars and Saturn, kind of like being between a rock and a hard place. Now she is moving into a sign where they welcome her. They've anticipated her arrival, and she gets to have this respite and this recovery and recuperation, which is a very big keyword that seems to be coming into it for this. And it's on the same day that Mars takes the place of Saturn and squares the nodes. So we do have some of this influence of, yeah, I've realized what needs to change. Now I have the gumption, the momentum to want to change as Venus is coming in. And so this change again, maybe I want to change something within. I want to heal something within and allow this to move me forward. This is also an energy of just taking a moment to breathe. It's been a crazy year already. It's been a crazy last few years. And now we have this space to be able to just create a stillness for ourselves, thanks to that energy of Pisces. And that is the energy I would focus into. I would take my moment to breathe and be aware of being in the moment and aware of where I am. One of the affirmations I use when I'm having a lot of anxiety or a lot of lack of control, I like to just remind myself that I am here and now. And that's all I need in that moment. So if that helps you, I hope that proves useful to you as well. Another word that I use for this is daydream believer, because Venus likes to make things kind of rosy and appealing, and Pisces is very dreamy. So we may have a lot of visions and images and grand ideas that come to us at this point, things that we would very much like. It's actually a great idea to think about your ideal life and what you would love to have in your life if nothing was in your way. If you could have anything without any caveat, what would it look like? What would it feel like? Lean into that for the entire time that Venus is in Pisces. And at this point, it's a really great opportunity to be able to think about peace among the chaos, finding that peace and stillness. The image that comes to my mind is in Frozen 1, actually. It's a lot of Frozen references in this, but that stillness that Elsa creates for herself during the climax, where she throws her arms out, all the snow stops, everything goes still, and she just takes a moment for herself. It's not like she's resting at that moment. There's still something to experience. There's still work to be done. But in that moment, she creates space to honor her feelings. And I think that that's a really great invitation for us to be able to take advantage of as well. And this Venus will be in Pisces for quite a while. So no worries about that, but it will also be activated by other transits that we are going to go through now as we progress to April 7th. So we get a break on the 6th as well from any exact transits. And on the 7th, Mercury will sextile Saturn. So a sextile is an opportunity aspect. It's not as easy flowing as a trine. It's not so easy you could miss it. It just happens so naturally. There's an opportunity here. And if you take advantage of it, you can use it. Fantastic. It'll probably go in a really great way with a little bit of effort. And so this one is not as bombastic as the Saturn-Mars conjunction, because that is truly them kind of doing that Super Saiyan fusion with each other, and they become one entity and one energy for that period of time. Mercury offers this sextile to Saturn, which is opportunities to apply new rules at a very high level. Saturn is in Aquarius, and Mercury at this point is still in Aries. So we have this future sight ability with Mercury, our mental capacity, saying, I see something here. I can structure it. I can make it real, but it is farsighted. So this is your opportunity to be able to look into the future a little bit and discern things, which I really like. But again, it is this sextile aspect. So it's something that you will be able to be conscious of and take advantage of it. It's a great day for writing down goals, for planning things out, planning a long-term project with all the steps in between. I feel like it's a great opportunity during this energy. So also accomplishing small goals as part of a long process. If you're already in process, this is a great time to just use that speedy energy of Mercury being direct and say, I decisively know I need to do this, 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 and this, and there's my to-do list. That energy of Aries also coming in with the decisiveness and the ambition and the gumption to want to actually accomplish. So the motivation will be with you this day, and it will also be something where you understand how it works, not just that it works. So that's a really great, a really nice thing to be able to experience as well. And then to April 8th, we are looking at Mercury doing the same thing, but this time with Mars. So this is an opportunity for direct action. Whereas yesterday we were tasking things out and maybe planning a little bit more. Now we're saying, okay, this, and this, quick thinking, decisiveness, all of those energies I talked about yesterday will come to a pinnacle the next day with Mars as well, because Mars and Saturn are traveling very close together. And then we can come into the, let's see, the 9th. And on the 9th, this is an interesting energy. I actually put a star next to it because we have, this is when the moon, which is in domicile, which means it's in Cancer at this point, the moon rules Cancer, is going to be forming a trine with the Jupiter and Neptune conjunction. They are on the same degree at this point, but not quite exact yet. So the moon is forming a nice trine with that conjunction. And then Pluto and Mercury, let me see here. Where am I looking? I think I might have been looking at something a little bit different here. So Pluto and Mercury are doing, what are you guys up to? They're coming into their time where they're forming a square with each other. So this is an opportunity with the moon really activating that Piscean conjunction. And I believe they're actually drawing near to Venus's exalted degree here too. That's just a fun fact for you. I'll talk more about that in a couple days on the chart here. So what we're looking at is this is an opportunity to feel and lean into the emotion that goes along with that Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, because they are so close together and the moon is seeing them. The moon is seeing them and bringing it into our emotional and spiritual awareness, because the moon is in her place of knowing herself best and feeling most herself as well. So it's a great time for spiritual enlightenment, maybe even a little bit of spiritual initiation that comes along with this, an experience that really takes you to the next level. It's not like you have to go out and find something to do to initiate yourself. Don't do that. That's not necessary. Life will help you level up when that's supposed to happen. And this may be one of those times where suddenly you just feel more part of the whole. And that's a really great feeling to have if you've ever had that surreal moment. Surreal is a great word to explain how this energy might feel. Big visions may be there. So you have this broad idealistic view of where things can be, what they could do, all the potentials. Now, at this point, you also may have dreams that are a little bit so big and vague that they kind of, they're not as grounded as they could be. Pisces is very fluid. It is the depth of the sea kind of energy. So we're looking at things that maybe if they come into your life right now, opportunities that come up, may be part of that initiatory process. So they require some discernment, some inner knowing in order to make those decisions. I encourage you to really follow your intuition at this point, which is super easy to do with all of this water energy. But really trust your intuition so that you can discern between what is too good to be true and won't last for you and isn't supportive for you, even though it might be pretty, and discern the right thing that is your next step, that is aligned and feels just centered and focused and right. Usually, as an added tip here, the decision feels either exciting or almost neutral. I just know that's the right thing, as compared to that is super shiny and I need to go investigate it right now, but then it turns out to be sort of a mirage situation. Know yourself, go within, make your decisions based on your intuition. And you can explore that on this day very well. Journal about it, tap into your energy, use any kind of like oracle cards, things like that to really help you understand what the opportunity might be or what course to take. Those intuitions, those insights should be pretty easy to tap into at this point. I like to say it's kind of like having astral vision, where you're kind of seeing into the matrix for a second and getting that background perspective so that when you come back around, you can understand the best strategic course to take. So like I said before, my notes are reminding me to have, with the squares going on with Mercury and Pluto, that might draw in an opportunity to have enough skepticism, have enough discernment, have enough perspective. Apparently that's a good idea, to be able to say, I want to think about this for a moment. This is really exciting, but I want to think about it. And you can do that. When someone offers you an opportunity, you can say, great, I'll get back to you at this point with my decision. You are empowered to do that. Pluto is actually very empowering. It was one of the things that I really like about Pluto is in its transformatory or transformational energy, it can be super empowering because it conditions us and refines us to our highest, purest form. So that's something to think about on the 9th. And then we go into the 10th, which is when Mercury square Pluto goes exact. And on the same day, Mercury will move into Taurus, while Saturn finally squares the nodes exactly this day. So as Mercury squares Pluto, Saturn is squaring the nodes from a separate sign, but also ruled by Saturn. So that Saturn energy is still very present. And so this is a time where we may feel inclined towards impulsive actions, and some things might break, right? And that's okay. So I'm going to let you know, this is a time where something may break in order to be remade or rebuilt or, again, refined. When you refine something, things fall off of it. So if you think about refining gold, it becomes a more pure state of itself. That's how I want to focus on the potential for this energy. So if you see things breaking around you or falling away around you, then it's helpful to, again, lean into your feelings, understand what that means for you. Let that be sort of a notification for where you're going. But this is an opportunity to fix and nurture new growth now that we're moving Mercury into Taurus. It reminds me of Taurus is very much associated with nature. So we're pulling weeds in the garden. Yeah, all the green looks great, but some of those plants are not nurturing growth. They're not supporting growth. And Saturn at this bend of the nodes is supporting growth in the long term. Saturn, one of my favorite things to talk about is that Saturn is often associated with old age, but in order to reach old age, you have to be able to make it from youth until old age. So Saturn supports that which has the ability to endure. And that's something to think about as well as you're experiencing this energy and navigating it, knowing that what is there for you is that which is helping you endure, that which is supporting you in the longer term, that is built to last. That is the way that I like to think about what Saturn is ultimately offering in the energies that come through with that. So weeding the garden, this is a garden that is meant to be structured for growth, to become more of a biodome with that Aquarian energy. Again, it's futuristic, it's long-term, it's sustainable. So it's not necessarily staying the same, though Saturn can be pretty traditional. That's Capricornian Saturn. Aquarian Saturn is like, okay, if we're going to start something new, let's start it right. So let's do something that is in the Aquarian way, a fixed energy. What is going to support me as I go through this new journey of understanding new things, of thinking about new things, of creating new connections that make sense for the people as a whole. So I like to think about this as we're clearing away and foreshadowing a kind of biomimicry. So like, again, biodomes and things that will support and sustain life and livelihoods for a long time in the future. So it kind of reminds me about solar punk. I love the emerging solar punk vibe that comes out in stories and things like that. Definitely recommend looking solar punk up on like Pinterest and stuff and seeing that kind of vibe, because I'm kind of here for it. That sounds really cool to me. Then on the 12th, so we skip the 11th and go to the 12th. This is the day that Jupiter and Neptune conjoin exactly. And it is also the day that the sun will offer a sextile opportunity to Saturn. So everything we mentioned on the 9th, when the moon kind of activated this, those themes still apply. So it's an opportunity to check in with yourself and really understand what you believe versus what you've heard. So I like to think about this as the difference between faith and even conspiracy. So there's stuff that I see and I'm inclined to believe it because it could be. But if I know why I believe it, it becomes my faith. I'm centered and focused and grounded in an experience that is justified something for me. So this can be metaphysical or whatever, but knowing and doing your research and into why you believe what you believe, so that if someone says, oh, that's interesting, why do you think that? You can say with confidence, oh, I think it because this. And there's no animosity there, and there's no fear there, and there's no doubt. You can take yourself beyond doubt to that deep faith of knowing. And so today may bring up a lot of people feeling and believing a lot of things and maybe not knowing why. So you may notice that people are a little bit excitable about different ideas and potentials, but you can take this opportunity and know yourself deeper and do your research. And the actual natural definition of apologetics is explaining rather than apologizing the way that we know it today. So this is an opportunity to research how you would apologize about what you believe. So apologize meaning how you would explain what it is that you believe to someone if they asked you, in a centered, grounded, conscious way, knowing that you have reasons behind everything that you're saying. So that's a really important thing to think about as a way to use this energy. And again, the sun forming the sextile with Saturn allows us to say, I'm going to shine some light on the why, shine some light on the foundation to what it is that I'm believing. So really it's about finding the source of something, the roots of the tree, rather than saying that's an apple and that's all I want to look at. That's an apple. It comes from a tree. There are roots to this tree. And then you know how that apple got there and what you want to do with that apple in your life. So I hope that that analogy was helpful. Again, this is the opportunity to get past anything that if you feel like one belief is contradicting another belief, try to rectify them. See which one is more rooted in something that feels tangible to you, that feels real to you, that feels aligned with you. And then see how maybe it's a both and situation, or maybe it's a this serves me more than this does situation. And you can, again, cut away anything that's extra to align yourself more fully with your higher purpose, with what should be happening, with making progress, which is another thing that Aquarius really likes to do. So Pisces may be like sledging through water up to your knees, but the sun and Saturn create this opportunity to at least see where you're going and how to get there. And over the next few days, the moon will be moving to oppose this alignment. So it will be in Virgo. And this gives us that objectivity to see it from the other side, the other perspective, the other side of the coin, which is another thing that should happen pretty naturally, but you may notice that you're thinking about it for a while. It stays with you. It's something you dream or mull over. And I think this energy is going to be really fun, especially since we know about it and we can say, ooh, I can take advantage of this. I'm going to sort of take my ticket and ride rather than just watch it go and not understand what I might have missed or anything like that. So the moon opposing it over the next few days offers the objective views and some tensions to help us see clearly. So if something feels tense with your beliefs, it's not you're wrong. It's a, hey, there's more I can understand about this. I'm curious. What more can I know? How much deeper can I take this? So if we take advantage of that Sun Saturn, it'll really help us be discerning and wise about it. And then we get another kind of rest in the energy on the 13th, moving us to the 14th as Mars now follows Venus to ingress into Pisces. So at this point, Mars moves into Pisces, which Mars is very fiery, very ambitious. It's been in the air, which gives it kind of space to burn. But now we're moving into dousing that flame a little bit or turning the flame into steam. And again, this is the opportunity. Is the flame going to be doused or does it become steam? And does the steam become something that cleanses your breath and all of those things that, you know, can happen at a sauna? So it feels, when I leaned into the energy, it was like chapstick when your lips have been very dry and you finally get to put some chapstick on it. And trust me, after talking for as long as I do in these, I love the feeling of being able to apply some chapstick and just relaxing into that energy. And again, it's an opportunity to settle down. It's not as fast of a motion. It's something moving through a thicker, more viscous substance of Pisces. So Mars trying to move, be direct, but slowing down enough that we can think, that we can anticipate, that we can maybe not accomplish things as quickly as we would hope or we would try to do, but it gives us that moment of divine timing. And it keeps us on pace with that. So one of the ways that I like to think about this is now that Venus and Mars are both in Pisces, this is like Mars being the god of war and Venus being the god of love and peace. Thinking about them having been on this journey that they've been on since Capricorn, where Mars was exalted, ruled by Saturn, the greater malefic, the greater restrictive energy, moving now into Venus and Jupiter's territory. Venus is exalted in Pisces. Jupiter is the ruler of Pisces. Now we go on the other side of the coin. We take what has been almost like when you forge metal and then dip it in the water. It doesn't take away that you've created a sword, but it does complete the process and allow that fire to be put out so that the thing that's been made can be useful. So that's something that I like to think about as well. I'm just looking at my notes to make sure I know what I'm talking about here. And so, yeah, so Pluto at this point is still in Capricorn. And it's just a nice, an interesting thing to note that it is at 28 degrees Capricorn, which happens to be Mars exalted degree. So again, we're not ignoring what's happened over the last few months. We're not just saying, oh, slate is wiped clean, new thing. This is the sword that has been forged, is now being refined and cooled to be used. So we're accepting things in order to repair, to do what comes next, to create the world that we want to see with this Neptunian, Piscean, Jupiterian vision. So that is something to keep in mind as well as we go into the 16th, which is our next lunation. And I'm going to find my chart here to make sure that I use the right one. It is the full moon in April on the 16th. And now I can share my screen so you can see a little bit of how this works as well. Here we go. So I'm going to make sure I bring up the astrology chart. There we go. Now you should be able to see the April full moon. This is happening on the 16th. It goes exact at 2:54, at least for the location that I've set up in New York. And one of the things that we can look at here is the lunation itself. Look at everything happening in Pisces over here. Isn't that interesting? Now, again, the descendant is just the setting horizon. It's the Western horizon. The lot of fortune is another aspect that is more about personal stuff. So I would look at this in your personal chart, not necessarily in a mundane chart like we're doing here. And Mars is at the 1st degree as well. This one here is the lot of spirit, very much like the lot of fortune with a different flavor. And we have Venus, Neptune, and Jupiter. These two, as you can see, still quite conjunct, just a little bit separated by minutes of a degree. And the lunation is the sun being opposite the moon, which is now in Libra. So this lunation is very much influenced by Mars and Venus, Mars being the ruler of the exalted sun and Venus being the ruler of the moon, which is full, so bright and full of light at this point. Remember, if we are here, the sun is shining a bright light on the moon and we can see the whole thing. So the full moon is ruled by, the full moon is ruled by Venus, and Venus is exalted in Pisces. So we're creating opportunities for personal and intrapersonal change. With the moon being in Libra, that's very much about relationships, about justice, about ideals, those kinds of things that go along with Libra. Hi, Libras. I hope that this feels relatable. And it is separating from a trine with Saturn. So glad I wrote this down. So you can see Saturn is also in an air sign and the moon is separating from a trine with Saturn, which is just really, I pointed this out so that we can understand that we are still structuring things. That sense of societal justice kind of comes through a little bit more too, with that energy still being quite close together. And Jupiter still being conjunct with Pisces. With Neptune in Pisces, there's that Pisces confusion that can come up sometimes. Sorry about that. And let's see, is there anything I'm missing as far as the aspects? We've got everybody here. Because people are in the same place, it's pretty easy to spot where the intensity of the energy is. So what we're looking at is, this is the final lunation before the eclipse and before eclipse season begins. So this is our last opportunity to be in a place where it feels separate from the collective. Again, this is my interpretation of eclipses, but I feel like they really pull things back into focus for where the collective is supposed to be, for where we all are. And it gets us all back in alignment and gives us sort of not a reset, but a save point. If you like the video game language, it's like a save point. This is where we can get on track and know that we are in a moment of stillness that aligns us with everything that's going on. So it's the final lunation before eclipse season. It really inspires some radical, possibly exaggerated change to go along with it, thanks to that, the grand visions and illusions that Neptune and Jupiter might be bringing up. With the Venus aspect here, we may have some delusions of grandeur. So seeing something as great and amazing, and I'm so ambitious to want to get there, but there's the other side where it can be sort of like ecstatic surrender, where I can't wait to see what happens next and I'm just here for it. That is another energy that you could play into, or that you could decide to use. So we are repairing and releasing relationships and grudges with this. Mars, being watered down in Pisces, tends to stew on things. So thinking about it as an opportunity for Mars to really be thinking about what we're feeling, thanks to Venus also being here, all the energy in Pisces right now, really making our feelings tangible and knowable and prominent for us, especially during a lunation, which I'm sure you know, full moon can be an emotional time to begin with. We are releasing a lot of things. So at this point, if you want to be conscious about it, the conscious thing to release, especially as we go into this eclipse season, is release any rejections, resentments, grudges, all of those things that you may be feeling, so that you can be your best and fullest self moving into this new beginning that is coming with the eclipses. So along with that, I have the affirmation of, I release attachment and engage life with unconditional love. Attachment to me is a condition. It is, I like this because, or if, only if. And if I can say, I like how that is because it's that, and that's all it needs to be, then you can honor that that's that, and that you are you. And if they work together, beautiful. There's a Boy Meets World quote that says, you are you and I am I. And if in the end we end up together, it's beautiful. That's beautiful too. That's wonderful. It's a great way to see things. A way to apply it is, if you find yourself saying, I need something, that need word carries kind of an attachment energy. I need it to be this way. If you catch yourself saying that, you could say, it would be nice for it to be this way. But you're allowing the universe, you're allowing God to bring you the best expression. So it would be nice for it to be this way or better. I'm going to allow that. I may not know everything, and there may be a better way for this to express itself. Can't wait to see it. And that gives you a lot more control in your detachment from outcomes, so that you can just enjoy what's going on and see opportunities and take advantage of them more readily. So that is our full moon. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And then we move into the 17th, where Mercury will sextile Venus. So creating that opportunity again for rapid surprises, changes in thinking. Venus is exalted and rules Mercury, as Mercury is in Taurus. Mercury, I thought so. So Mercury is on Uranus at this point. Mercury and Uranus are both at 13 degrees in Taurus. So offering a strong support for change, and hopefully change for the better. Again, we're thinking about charity and peace, and that conjunction between Mercury and Uranus will be exact the very next day on the 18th. And at this time, the sun will also square Pluto, while Venus is now going to offer that sextile aspect to Uranus. So a lot of things happening at once here. And the way we can bring this together is the sun and Pluto square shed some light on hidden things, maybe even buried things, and brings them up to be addressed. That may not necessarily be bad things, but it's just, oh, I haven't thought about that in a long time. This changes things. I'm glad I know about it now to take this into consideration. It could bring up kind of ghosts from the past as well. But again, they're not here to haunt you. They are here like the ghosts of Christmas in A Christmas Carol to create transformation, to create something new, to help refine this personality. So it's kind of like, it reminds me of spotlights on Punxsutawney Phil, the groundhog that is famous for Groundhog Day, because the sun is shining and we're bringing something out from underground. And of course, that light is going to create some kind of a decision moment, a pivot moment of, do I go back down and hide, or do I stay out in the light and let this be seen, let it be known, and see what happens? So I hope, I hope the Groundhog Day kind of feeling not of repetition, but of shining light on something that's been hibernating for a while and deciding, does it stay out or does it go back in? That kind of situation may be prominent that day. Overall, there's a sudden change in thinking with the Mercury and Uranus conjunction, and actions that are due to surfacing and maybe, you know, surprising in a good or in a not so great way. Some new information that comes up, but it's for the betterment of your quality of life. It will ultimately be something that leads to the highest and best situation. So thinking about it as the opportunity to rescue or support someone who may have been taken advantage of or taken for granted up until this point, because we do have the moon happening to be trine that Jupiter-Neptune. So bringing in that sense of charity, bringing in that sense of creating the ideal, still seeing the vision of what could be and wanting to create that, and all the things happening in front of you could be changes that ultimately lead to that goal. So like I said, there may be some surprises. They may be welcome. They may be surprises that you kind of would have not liked to see that day. But what you can do now that you're aware that this energy is happening, you can say, this was going to happen. This is the right time for this to be happening. I can choose to be charitable. I can choose to be forgiving. I can choose to understand this in a higher perspective, to really meditate on it, and then move forward in aligned action. So that's something that we can look forward to, as the very next day we move into Taurus season. So we begin a whole new season that we can share here. And I'm going to share my screen. So Taurus season is, of course, ruled by Venus as well. So like I said, Venus is doing a lot of work this month. She's got a lot of say in stuff that's going on. And so what we can see is, again, this is just set for the United States. I chose Washington. So the house system is not as important, but I will lightly mention it for anybody who's interested. But what we're looking at is the sun moving into Taurus. It is at 0 degrees and 0 minutes. This is the beginning of Taurus season over the next month. People who are born with their sun in Taurus, this is your month of birth. Mine too. So happy birthday to all Taurus suns out there. It's so nice to be able to share this energy with you. So one of the things I'm looking at is, this means that Venus gets to be pulled in here because Venus rules the sun here. And so we see that the moon is rising in Sagittarius over here. Hang on a second. Lunation ruler. Where's my Venus? There we are. Found it. I had to look at my notes for a second. So Venus is exalted in Pisces and square the moon, which is why I'm bringing that in. And so with Venus being exalted in Pisces, and at the time of this, because again, in my time zone, it happens at night, Venus is even more beneficial. So we see that Venus is exalted in Pisces, square the moon, offering a sextile to that Uranus Mercury still, as it is separating a little bit, and approaching her conjunction with Neptune, which will be on the 27th of the month, but also near the exact exaltation degree of Venus. So we're breaking into our dream world. I view this as kind of the closet to Narnia. We're in this portal from where we're at, moving into this dream world, this ideal world. Saturn is still playing some influence here. So we're still structuring this. We're still trying to be as practical as possible, but in a sense that will lead us to long term. So it's a very manifestation kind of energy. And the great thing is that it's in Taurus, which is an earth and fixed sign. So it brings it into the reality. Like I said before, Venus is doing a lot of the heavy lifting this month, but she's mostly up to the challenge. There's a lot of supportive energy here for her being in that exalted sign. So it's like you're cleaning your house, both personally and socially. So breaking through illusions that we may have held up until now, kind of deciding that I've been waiting long enough. I've been in that stasis long enough. Now I'm ready to take my matters into my own initiative and create a nice place for me to live, work, and grow, and for others to live, work, and grow. Think of it as like a community garden, which I really love. So an affirmation for Taurus season is I build the world I want to see. And ways that I would actively take advantage of this, I would redecorate. I am actually planning on redecorating several rooms in my house during this season. You can redecorate, donate to a cause that is near to your heart, and start taking tangible steps towards what you want to see in the world. So this is saying, this is what I want. This is my big sky image. Here's what has to happen between then and now. And here's what I can do first, or here's what I can do next. So that is the idea behind some of that Taurus energy. And with that, we actually move into the final 10 days of the month. We're there, we're making it. So next up, we actually do have on the 24th is the next day that we're looking at. So that was on the 19th. We have probably our longest stint of not having exact transits in the month. And that brings us to the 24th of April, where Mercury will square Saturn, which at the time is actually also close again to being conjunct with the moon and offering this sextile aspect to Mercury is offering, I believe, the sextile to Neptune. Let me just check myself here. Yep. Okay. So Mercury squaring Saturn and the moon, but also sextile with Neptune. At this point, Neptune is at 24 degrees. Jupiter has moved on to 26 degrees. So this separation is beginning to really dissolve for us, which is nice. So what we have is the square between Saturn, which is activated a little bit by the moon being there, creates a conflict with structures or obligations, but offers opportunities to see an out-of-the-box approach on how to handle this. So we know where to bend the rules rather than break them, or possibly we do end up impulsively breaking some rules. And then it reminds me a little bit about if you have feelings of buyer's remorse, where you might find yourself thinking about decisions you've made or thinking about things that have changed and just honoring your feelings about them. So those are some ways that you may find this showing up in your life, but the energy is there to let us see where we have the opportunity to change something and how we can do it in a very creative and, like I said, out of the box kind of way. Then on the 27th, Mercury will form a sextile aspect with Jupiter, and Venus will conjunct Neptune. So that is a few days later on the 27th of April. Mercury, which is now the only planet on the other side of the nodes, that line between the North Node and the South Node that I mentioned before, Mercury is now at 28 degrees Taurus. The nodes are at 22 degrees Taurus for the North Node and Scorpio for the South Node. So now Mercury is really thinking outside of the line of thinking that the other planets are encouraging. And so this is opportunities to think differently, to emerge from the mindset that we may have been in for a while now. And so there's the potential for some inflated idealism with Venus being conjunct Neptune. Neptune saying, oh, it's so big, but it's also so small, as you may have seen in my skits on TikTok, but Venus saying, something so pretty and comfortable. This is a great space. So again, a really meditative healing kind of space, recuperation that goes along with it. It's when your muscles all actually relax. If you've felt that sometime recently, congratulations. And hopefully around the 27th, that will be one of the ways this energy manifests for you as well. So be aware that you may have really grand plans. There's even a grand sextile in a way happening at this point too. The midheaven's drawn in, so I would say that's situational. But we are looking at opportunities to really rest, opportunities to indulge ourselves in the visions and the comforts and the things that we really love. But there is an opportunity as well for overindulgence, for not knowing how far is too far. So know yourself on this day and be aware, witness your feelings from an outside perspective. If you're feeling something, say, I'm feeling this thing. And then you acknowledge it, you put it in a sentence, and it makes it a lot more rational and gives you the opportunity to say, oh, wow, I'm in this situation. And then you become more objective. And that objective perspective is another opportunity that we have to be able to dissolve the boundaries between my perception and the greater perception. So definitely recommend for this day on the 27th, if you have big feelings, witness them. And then you can work with them rather than letting them make you feel like you might be drowning in the sort of illusion that we might have with a Piscean, deep oceanic kind of image. Then we have on the 28th, Mercury will trine Pluto. And at this point, Pluto is stationing to retrograde. This is the only planet that has retrograded in quite a while, since Venus ended her retrograde and Mercury ended their retrograde at the end of January and in the beginning of February. We've had all the planets moving forward, all the planets moving in a direct movement. So now Pluto will be the first to sort of pause and go backwards a little bit. And that stationing degree is active as Mercury trines Pluto and brings it again into making it a little bit more personal. So we're taking notice of what is transforming in our life and what changes and potentials that we may want to transform before going within and allowing those changes to happen, beginning on the inside and then emerging out over this period. So Pluto will move retrograde. Its exact retrograde will begin on the 29th. On the same day that Mercury then moves into Mercury's domicile of Gemini. Mercury rules Gemini. This is very chatty, communication, curiosity kind of energy. And we have the retrograde process for Pluto. The foreshadow of this, when Pluto was at the degree that it will end its retrograde on. So Pluto went like this, and now it's stopping and it's going to go back. So this degree has happened before, and that is, I believe it's going to be 26 Capricorn, where Pluto is currently at 28 Capricorn. So not a ton of ground covered, but a lot of time has taken place in this period. So on January 5th, that was the last time Jupiter was at 26 Capricorn in 6 minutes. And this retrograde will begin at 28:35 Capricorn, move back to that 26:6, and it will last until the 8th of October. So on the 8th of October, Jupiter will be back to that same degree it was at on the 5th. And then the post shadow, the time it will take Jupiter to get from the 26th degree back to the 28th, where it is currently at, will be until January 29th, 2023. So this is a long process. And what that means is you can take your time. You can let it unfold naturally. There is no rush with anything that goes along with this. In this period, we will also see for the United States, that second Pluto return, where we experienced it first on February 22nd. Ish, then it will go back to that degree, I believe, in June. And stay tuned. I will cover that for you as well. It will happen over the summer, and we'll just revisit things that came up around that time. So this is a time for, in a personal sense, experimenting with what's transforming in your life, adapting to new versions of you from the inside out, doing your research again into what you believe and what makes you you. Ask yourself what your favorite color is and why. It'll blow your mind when you can actually explain why you feel that way, and then you can apply that to other things as well. Be curious. If you have the opportunity or the energy of feeling intense and hyper fixated, and sometimes a word associated with Pluto is obsession, and I have a lot of Pluto energy in my chart, so I totally get that. You can choose to be curious, which is the same energy, but more fun. So choose to be curious in moments where you feel like you might be zeroing in a little bit too much and feeling trapped. Be curious, find your way. One of the things that I like to say is concerns tend to be an illusion. It's simply a discomfort with not having the answers to questions yet. So if you don't have the answers to a question and you're feeling concerned, recognize that you simply have a question, and then you can pursue the answer. And that brings us to the eclipse on the 30th. We've almost rounded out the month here. So I'm going to bring up the eclipse chart and share it with you, and we can talk about this. And then we have a couple other days I'll go into. Actually, I believe April's got 30 days, or is it 31? I think it's 30. We'll find out. I'll move the day. I know May has 31 days, so April must be at 30. This must be the last day. Again, we have a little bit of confusion happening here, but that's my thing. Sorry about that. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that we can look at this eclipse happening on the last day of April as we prepare to move in. So the eclipse is happening. You can see it's technically a new moon, but because it's very close to that node, an eclipse happens generally within 15 degrees of the nodes. And again, this is where we see, now we know it's an eclipse because looking at the chart, it's at the nodes. So we have this new moon, but it's actually a lunar eclipse happening at the nodes. And so the ruler of this is Venus. Now, in the chart for New York that I've set, again, pretty arbitrary depending on where you're at, Venus is also the ruler of the entire chart, which is just pretty interesting to me as a fun fact for where I'm at. Again, I would look at this where you're at and see what differences there might be to be a little bit more specific with what houses are active during this. But we can look at the aspects, we can look at the planets, we can look at the signs and see a lot about this, even still, that applies to most all of us. So this eclipse is happening at 10 degrees and 28 minutes of Taurus, and Venus is still extremely active because she is at her exaltation degree, conjunct. You can see that they're almost exactly conjunct with Jupiter. That will actually come exact later in the same day. So with Venus conjunct Jupiter, the two benefics now coming together, similar to how the two malefics came together when Mars and Saturn conjoined earlier in the month. Now we have the benefics coming together in Jupiter's rulership and Venus's exaltation. Tons of good, an overabundance of good going along with this, and Venus being the ruler of the lunation itself, of this eclipse. So normally Taurus is the exalted sign of the moon. The moon is really welcomed in Taurus, but the moon is getting overshadowed. It's a lunar eclipse. So that falls away a little bit. This is one of the reasons I do not recommend moon water, manifesting, all of those things, because again, this is a divine realignment kind of scenario. So you don't want to force what is supposed to happen. You don't want to force God's hand or the universe's hand. You want to high five that hand typically. So you would say, I'm going to allow what happens here to happen. And I'm going to remove my focus, my will, my intention from it to see where I'm supposed to go. This is our chance to step back and assess and receive rather than to drive. So with this happening, we do have Venus, like I said, conjunct Jupiter, and the sun with the moon in Taurus conjunct Uranus. So you can see we have them at 10 degrees. They're approaching conjunction with Uranus. And this is also forming that sextile aspect with Mars over here at 11. So they are approaching that 11th degree, which will activate Mars in Pisces. And the moon is a little bit cheated out of exaltation. And the way that I like to express this was, if you think about another Pixar film, Monsters, Inc., every time Mike Wazowski gets a moment in the spotlight, there's a sticker on his face or something that overshadows it. So where this would be a very exalted lunar moment, it's the Mike Wazowski moment where he's on the cover of a magazine, but the sticker's right on him. So it's that kind of thing, which creates an opportunity for radical change and revolutionary efforts that's coming along with this. Taurus knows how to get work done. So there's stuff happening, especially with Uranus being so active in this lunation, in this eclipse. There's stuff happening. There's changes going on. There's something radically new on the horizon. And our only job is to welcome it, is to be here with open arms for whatever is coming. And so again, I would not put any fear on this. We do have the benefics conjoined here, and they are actually forming a pretty loose trine with the south node, a sextile with the north node. So there is this, again, opportunity for really good things coming. But it could be really like, is there too much of a good thing? We'll probably find out. So with this, it's like a massive change or download of a new paradigm, a new way that things are going to go. And this eclipse cycle began a little bit back with the eclipse in October of 2021, but this is the first time it's going to begin uninterrupted for the next year and a half or so until July of 2023. They will be alternating between Taurus and Scorpio. That's where the eclipses will be until July of 2023. So one of the things that I like to think about is we're moving in the direction of the creator's definition, the universe's definition, or God's definition of peace, of justice, of taking, and we're taking, thanks to this eclipse, the shortest route to get there. So if you're over here and what you need is over here, an eclipse is like, we're here, we got you, we're aligned, we're in the same place, but you're along for the ride to get you there. And then you find out that you're exactly where you need to be. So affirmations for this is I am ready to see, feel, and know. I am ready to allow those things in. Again, no manifesting. One thing that I plan on doing to just allow it, a card pull is great, just to say, hey, what am I supposed to be picking up from what you're throwing down? Fantastic opportunity. I also just like to lay down, meditate a little bit, and see what visions come in. And then you can check them against your card pulls or anything like that. But just receiving that information, receiving that download is really helpful, especially with a lunar eclipse. It's very personal. And on this very same day, Venus will conjunct Jupiter. And with this event, so to speak, this amazing conjunction and new energy coming in, check where Taurus is in your chart. Know that there may be some radical new beginnings or radical conclusions, pivot points happening in your life around there. That's something that may be coming up for you over the course of the next year and a half. So again, it's something that will unfold over the next year and a half. It doesn't have to be catastrophic. It can be really exciting. It can be amazing. If you want to know more about how this could look for you personally, we could look into your natal chart together. I do offer readings and consultations. You can find them on my website to schedule at a time that works for you. And we can go over what do the eclipses seem to be looking like for you. I even work with people on a more personal basis where I become your personal astrologer, and we look ahead and track what has happened in order to see what might happen along that same storyline. So those are opportunities if you feel compelled to be able to look into this more and want some help and feel like I can help you. There is how you can find me. Other ways to find me are, of course, the Alchemist Inkwell YouTube and the podcast, where I do talk about this every week. We'll be talking about it there with Emily, who is at Like Her Words on TikTok and Instagram. I am personally at The Real Crystalline, in case we were confused that there might be an imposter. I am at The Real Crystalline on TikTok and Instagram and all those things. And I would love to be able to interact with you there. What I do there is I take these things and I put them into little skits and personify the planets so that you can understand the vibe of them a little bit more while explaining how to make the most of that energy. So I hope to be able to see you there. I hope that April ends up being an amazing month for everyone. And I hope that all of the best things come for you and that you have the highest and best opportunities that you can possibly have. And I want to thank you for spending this time with me, for watching this video. I appreciate you. And I look forward to helping hopefully a little bit more with next month when we do the May forecast another month from now. So thank you and have a blessed and wonderful April.